Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to just be reviewing a couple of terms that we have been learning, and one of those is survival of the fittest versus natural selection. To remind you, this is the TEAC that we are addressing still, and it includes both natural selection and just your understanding that those genetic traits that plants and animals have today have been happening over hundreds of thousands of years, over many, many generations. Those traits that are better or produce better individuals are the ones that are going to continue. So yesterday, one of the things that you looked at was selective breeding versus natural selection. I think it was yesterday. But the thing that I did want you to remember is the main thing. They both end up with the same thing. In both instances, whether it was selective breeding or natural selection, you end up with a better organism for whatever reason makes it better. But we see here that in selective breeding, we have changes that happen from what the organism used to look like to something that's better. And in this case, it's better for humans to have corn that produces these bigger ears of corn than how they came naturally to the earth. So the choices made by humans to make changes to those genetic traits that are passed down because we want something out of it. And usually it's more meat, more milk, better vegetables, they last longer, they're resistant to insects, those kind of things. But you end up with the same result as nature. You end up with a better organism. But the changes happen, they're random. They happen just by luck, let's say, that bird was born with that beak that made it able to eat certain foods in certain places better than it was originally made. So selective breeding is humans select the traits they want, but in natural selection, nature is the one who just by chance things happen. And again, if it's better, then nature says, well, I pick you to be the way this animal is going to look like, act like, etc. from here forth. We also last week, or whenever we were last together, talked about mutations, how mutations help in natural selection and adaptation as well. So we see here that, this is what this organism always looked like. There was a mutation, meaning a change in the gene that could have just happened spontaneously, just by itself. Or it could have been induced by man. But instead of just having this organism, now there's a mutation that changes it, and we have these organisms. And then nature figures out, you know what, this isn't really a good thing. So nature eliminates it. This one either doesn't go on breeding or whatever, but it goes away. It becomes extinct. These other two, yeah, those were okay. And then when reproduction happens, well, this was an okay thing at the time, so it made some more. From this organism, and again, they're still all related, you get, again, a mutation. Here's the original one, just like the parent ones. And you get a mutation, and it turns out like, this is pretty good. So where we used to think that this was okay, like the original, it comes a time because maybe the environment changes that this is not okay. But these mutations we had happened from the original down to what's existing, those are still pretty good. So those get to go on and reproduce. And then that species continued. Does it look exactly like it started? No, but the species is still alive and kicking. It did not go extinct. It just changed to something else or something better, so it will continue. So, as I said, mutations can also help in natural selection. So, natural selection keeps the good mutations that have a chance to survive and lets them go on to reproduce. And again, humans do the same thing in selective breedings. We can change the genes and have them mutate to give us what we want. You know, a cow that produces twice as much milk as the parent cow. Okay, so we're going to revisit survival of the fittest. This term, it says, an organism most fit to survive in their environment will. And the opposite of survival of the fittest is extinction of the weakest. And I really want you to think about that. So there's survival of the fittest, the organisms that are most fit to survive, they're going to survive. But you're also going to have other organisms that they're not the fittest. They're not what works anymore. They're going to go extinct. And we know that by looking at the fossil records, that there are many, many animals that used to survive that don't anymore because a better model came along and replaced it. So we've seen this many times of what Darwin has told us. It's not the strongest of the species that survives or the most intelligent. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Okay, things change. Can you roll with the punches? So here's an example I'm giving you. It says polar bears are declining in numbers because they rely on the sea ice for traveling, hunting, resting, and mating. And we're talking about sea ice. We're talking about like these ice floats or just the edge of the land where there's ice. And it's important because that's where they find seals and stuff. Okay, it says because of global warming, the ice is melting. In the case of ice floats, it says some bears are drowning because they're not able. They'll draw. You know, they do a lot of swimming. Polar bears, you can tell they've got these great feet that allow them to swim very well. So they'll swim out into the ocean, but they're expecting for there to be ice floats where they can stop to rest. But it says some bears are drowning because they're not able to swim, as far as they could without resting on these ice floats. And so, again, they're drowning. It says, but those that can swim further or better are more fit to survive. Or it could be that some bears just are not willing or not able to swim as well. They're just not going out swimming in the middle of the ocean, meaning they're not going to drown. So those bears that are better swimmers, or the bears that don't swim at all, and then maybe they're just catching their food along the edge of the land there, they're more fit because they're the ones that are adapting to these climate changes that are happening and where these ice floats aren't existing, or ice along the edge of the land where they live with the ocean. And so they're not drowning and they're not risking their lives by going out there and not finding any food, and then again also drowning. They put a lot of energy goes into swimming way out there, only not to eat anything, not to get energy, and then they're unable to swim back to shore. So there are some that are going to be even better swimmers, and they have to be because there's not going to be a place to rest. There are going to be some that are not going to go out swimming at all. They're not going to drown either because they're staying on the shore. Those are going to be the ones that are going to survive. their environment is changing. The bear who thinks he can still swim out there, catch food, rest, and come back, those are going to die out. It's these new polar bears that are going to survive. That's survival of the fittest. The fittest ones are the ones who are even better swimmers than the other ones were, or the ones who don't swim at all. It says in the struggle for survival, the fittest win at the expense of their rivals because they succeed in adapting themselves to their best environment. So it means that there's going to be winners and losers in nature. I've said before, nature is brutal. There are going to be some winners that are going to survive, and there's going to be losers that are going to become or die, or their whole species could become extinct. So it says, so the fittest polar bears are those that can swim better or not swim at all. They will beat out the rivals, the guys who are doing it how they've always done it, because they're adapting themselves to this new environment where global warming is occurring and melting the ice that they're used to living on. And compared to natural selection, so this cartoon you see over here, or these images you see, are very often used to show or give you an example of natural selection. So it shows these crows. These birds love the green bugs. And given the choice, they're going to eat the green bugs. So over many generations, the crows keep eating the green bugs. And there's also red bugs. Maybe this is a mutation, but every once in a while you get some of these red bugs too. But the crows, they don't really like them. The crows like the green bugs. So they're going to pick out the green bugs. After many generations, you're going to have less and less green bugs, and you're going to have more and more red bugs because the crows aren't eating the red bugs. So natural selection says, sorry, green bugs, but you're going to go away because you're in a bad position. Nature is not working against the red bugs. They're not being eaten. So the example given here, and I'm just going to read through it, says, in a habitat there are red bugs and green bugs. The birds prefer the taste of green bugs. So soon there are many red bugs and few green bugs, because of course they're being eaten. The red bugs reproduce and make more red bugs, and eventually there are no more green bugs. Nature chooses the red bugs to survive because they have what it takes to survive in an environment where birds like to eat green bugs. Okay? So, the fittest are the red bugs because they're the ones who are surviving their environment. And nature is saying, yeah, we're picking you because you are the fittest. Okay, so natural selection, this is the best suited for, what constitutes natural selection is the best suited for their environment. This increases your chances of survival, and you are the best version of your species, like being the fastest runner. And I'm going to go ahead and link this video in the notes so you can watch it once you go through this video or the slideshow. Okay, so best suited for your environment, that increases your chances of surviving. You're the best version of your species, whether it's you're the fastest runners, the strongest swimmer, best camouflage. You win because you have those traits. You win, you get to reproduce. Okay? You win. You win the big prize of reproduction. Okay? So what we see, I hope you can see, that survival of the fittest, that goes right into natural selection. An animal survives because it was best suited for its environment. Then what that leads to is that nature chooses it, or that model, to continue to reproduce. And that's natural selection. So that is the end of the notes. Please go back and watch the film on the cheetahs. And I don't have an exit question for for you. I just need you to go through these notes. Thank you, guys.